Well, as you know, one of the things that we have purposefully done here is to have a diverse cast of characters, an amazing group of speakers. But part of what we wanted to do when we talk about diversity that often doesn't get talked about is diversity of religion. It's not just about race and ethnicity and gender, but religion is the, in my opinion, often most overlooked social identity. And we wanted to make sure that speakers could come and bring whatever part of that identity that they wanted to, that we didn't tokenize and make light of that identity and say that is what you must speak about, but that they could bring how their identity shaped them, how they orient around religion to their talks, and they have done so beautifully so far today. So Noor, Amanda, you come from similar and different backgrounds in many ways. One of the things that strikes me about both of your talks is that you have this place of beginning in a real love for democracy and politics that start in your youth. I know that Amanda's story starts in high school and yours in college, but I know enough about you, Noor, to know that your love did start very young as well. But for you, Noor, your access to those places was much different than it was for Amanda. So I thought maybe you two could talk not just to us or to me, but even to each other about what you heard kind of in each other's stories and your experiences about getting started in what many people would probably say. I mean, I'm that person, so it's harder for me to say. Getting started in this, real love for I want to know how to be involved in this democratic movement that is this country.
Yeah. Well, I was just struck, Noor, by listening to your speech about how much you reminded me of me. Just doing internships in college and being involved in talking about the things you're not supposed to talk about in polite company, politics and religion, and doing it at the same time. And just how grateful and inspired I am that your voice is making such a difference at the state legislature and in the U.S. Congress. And I'm just incredibly impressed by what you're doing and grateful that you're willing to put yourself into this calling now. I will say, I gave away my age in my speech. So, when I started doing this a long time ago, the political situation was not nearly as rancorous or as dire as is now. So it's a real act of bravery to be throwing yourself into this political career now. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I know that BJC is one of those organizations I'm always reading up on and always following, so it really does mean a lot. I think hearing your story, what I found so inspiring and also interesting is being able to place yourself in that discomfort of having these difficult conversations with those that may look like you or are in your community. I think that's very, very difficult. It's easier to have those conversations outside of your community because you know you have a place to return. But when you're upsetting your supposed in-group, that can be very difficult. But the work is just so important. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, speaking to the Christians, this fight against Christian nationalism is something that as I said, is going to take everyone.
Of course.
So our work at Christians Against Christian Nationalism is never meant to be exclusive, but it's meant to put a special extra burden and responsibility on Christians who enjoy the most privilege to use that privilege to break it down and to fight for real equality. And that will be threatening to many people, but it's something that I think can and sometimes only be heard from within.
You're alluding to this a little bit, but already in terms of cooperation and others being welcome to that fight against Christian nationalism. But I wanted to touch on this a little bit because Noor, you spoke quite a bit about your love for interfaith, all things interfaith. You will be one of the first to graduate with, if not the first technically, because it's December. She graduates in 42 days, and will be the first to graduate with the civic interfaith studies minor at Baylor University. The first. I'm just going to say that again. And that term is something that just slips right off of your tongue, but maybe not for others is as clear as what do you mean by that? It fits you well, but can you help others understand what you mean by that?
Yeah, so civic interfaith studies is kind of at the intersection of what Amanda and I have both talked about today. It's bringing folks together to really not only get to know one another, but create relationships that can be productive. So it's productive relationship building, I would say. And most of my classes have focused on how do we bring folks together, you know, keeping their individual identities and their differences and being true to that, but using that to create solutions around issues such as food insecurity and religious liberty. That's what civic interfaith studies means to me. I know that there's a complex definition, but I don't know if that would be as helpful.
Those common ground issues that you can then move forward around. Yeah, absolutely. So is that something that has helped you? It sounds like you described it without even trying to, that when you work with legislature around your no kids in cuffs, that even though you walked into an office of a senator who was not Muslim, their faith might have compelled them in a similar way because of the way they believe that children should be treated. Then you had a new common ground issue. Would that be an example? Yeah,
definitely. You know, in everything that we do, I think that religion really lies in either in the background or in the forefront of a lot of folks' decision making, especially in the legislature, especially in Texas. So to walk into an office and talk a little bit about what we do about the faith community and then talk about children, people then kind of, you know, the bridges are built there to talk a little bit about how religion really values children and safety and taking care of those who are, you know, versus talk about the orphan, the widow, and those in need.
That makes perfect sense. And Amanda, what would you say maybe is something for those who might be thinking, okay, I do have some privilege at maybe multiple intersections, or they hear this, what you've said about Christian nationalism, they heard what Noor said and her aspirations, and even what Sophie had to say in terms of coming together and being able to kind of break down some of the ways that we think so that we can move forward. What would you say to those people with that privilege that they can do so that someone like Noor gets to be represented in some of the places that she's wanting to be represented?
Yeah. I mean, I think so much of what has allowed Christian nationalism to fester and grow through the centuries is that we haven't paid attention to it. We have looked aside when there have, and just kind of dismissed some of the words that look more like civil religion, you know, like the "in God we trust" or "one nation under God," and thought kind of, well, what harm is that doing? How is that? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with being religious? To which we say, you know, nothing. But what kind of signal is that sending as far as belonging? And why is that so important to our identity? Because as Americans, religion does not unite us. We don't live in a Christian nation. We don't live in a theocracy. That's not something that can ever bring us together. So why are we clinging in some ways so closely to some of these vestiges of civil religion that can bleed into Christian nationalism when we can instead focus on the things that do unite us? And I think that the thing that unites us all is this commitment to religious freedom for all. Across the political ideological spectrum, everyone says they're for religious freedom. So this is something that can bring us together. So why not concentrate on really building that kind of freedom that is based on equality, not privilege, and be willing to let go of some of these vestiges of Christian nationalism that are only serving to divide us.
Equality being something that most Americans at least aspire to, even though we know that there are places and ways that we don't have it.
Right.
But it's a value that we tend to wrap around pretty well.
It's remarkable that, in this very polarized, divided time, a lot of us are using the same language, the same buzzwords. Everyone's for freedom. Everyone's for equality, or says that they are. So let's call ourselves to that ideal and be mindful of some of these assumptions that have never been questioned. When half of the United States still thinks that we should be a Christian nation, or even a higher percentage thinks that we were founded as a Christian nation, it's time for us to kind of question some of these assumptions that have laid the groundwork for division and inequality.
And Noor, I know that you have found ways to work even with all of those things that have just been said, and you're aware of that, and you still keep moving forward. But as you are about to graduate college and move even more so into this work, what is it that you hope for yourself and for others that come behind you with the same kind of passion in their youth?
Yeah. Something that always pushes me to kind of continue with this work is the idea that it only takes one conversation. It really only takes one conversation to reach out to folks who have hurt communities with their words, to reach out to folks that have been harmful in the past, and to sit down with them and to give your whole self to them and let them get to know you is what this really takes to kind of break down those barriers. Because once you can see people as people and not as political ideologies, it changes a lot. And I think for those who come after me, who attend Baylor University, who go into the world of policy, I hope that they can understand that opportunities are endless. You have to go after an opportunity. And it's something that my parents have always told me: never just leave an opportunity because you don't think you're going to be able to take it. I remember when I was writing the speech, Sharyl, you and I were kind of cutting down, condensing. And part of it was that I was telling the story of how when I first got to Baylor, everyone had connections to different internships. And so, I'm filling out internship applications, and my roommates and everyone were, "Oh, why would you do that? My dad's just going to call so-and-so, and I'm going to go intern at this judicial court. I'm going to do this." And, I felt a little bit disheartened, but, take those opportunities. Something that my mom and my dad always stress on is that God never lets hard work go unrewarded. And so I really want, those who come after me to realize that your hard work, it might not materialize immediately, but you will see it. You will see a reward after.
I think that's a really great place to end. I will say that Noor's family is here, so if you want to shake some hands and say you have raised an incredible daughter, that is absolutely appropriate. And Amanda, thank you so much for sharing as you have today. I will turn it over to John, but let's give them another round of applause.